Alright guys, so in the last video we left off after looking at all the different selectors. So we looked at the document.getElement by ID, get elements by class name, get elements by tag name, query selector, and query selector all. So now we're going to talk about traversing the DOM. So basically kind of moving up and down, looking at parent nodes, child nodes, and siblings. So if we look at the index.html here, when we talk about a parent node, basically what that means is, let's take this h2 for example. So this h2 has a parent of this div right here with the ID of main. This is the h2 parent because it's inside of it. Okay, now this h2 is a child of the div, so that's a child. And then we also have siblings, and this form here is a sibling of the h2 because they're on the same level. Neither one of them are inside of each other, so they're siblings. So I'm going to show you how to query parents and siblings and children and all of that. Alright, so let's go back into dom.js, and all this code up here is all the stuff from part 1. So first thing we're going to look at is parent nodes, or parent. We have a couple different methods we're going to use. So I'm going to grab this item list right here, all these list items. So I'm going to create a variable and I'm going to call it item list. And I'm going to set it to document dot, and I'm going to use query selector, and we'll just grab the ID of items, okay, because it's a UL with the ID of items, and that's what I'm grabbing. So let's take a look at the parent node. Okay, so we're going to use the parent node method, or parent node property. So we're going to console.log, and let's say item list dot parent node, and you'll see it actually comes up here. So let's go ahead and save that and see what it gives us. So it gives us the div with the ID of main. So let's take a look at the HTML, and we have our UL with the ID of items. That's what we're selecting. And then the parent node, if we go above, h2 is not the parent node, that's a sibling. The form is a sibling, h2 is a sibling. The div here is actually the parent because it's inside of the div. Alright, so that's what it's giving us. Now we can use this as a selector if we wanted to. So if I wanted to grab this and say like, let's say item list.parentNode.style.background color equals, and we'll say light gray. Alright, so what do you think this is going to change? This is going to change the parent node, which is the div with the ID of main. So let's save, and there we go. So now we have the gray background on the main, the div with the ID of main. And if we look down here in the console, it's logging it, and it now has that background color. Now we can keep going, we can chain these things. So if we want to, let's say, grab this console log, and let's say parent node dot parent node. So what do you think that this is going to give us? We know that the div with the ID of main is the parent node of the items. What's the parent node of the div with the ID of main? So let's check it out, and I think it's going to be the container. So let's see. Let's go ahead and save, and we get the div with the class of container. Alright, and we can keep going. We can say, what's the parent node of that? And we get the body. Okay, so we can just keep chaining these on. Alright, now I'm just going to comment this stuff out. And next thing we're going to look at is parentElement. So parentElement is basically the same thing. Actually, you know what I'll do is just copy this, because for what we're doing, it is essentially the same thing. So if I were to change element, so we'll say element, parentElement. Let's see, we should get the same thing, and save, and we get the same exact thing. We're getting the gray background. We're console logging down here. So parent node and parentElement for the most part can be used, they can be interchangeable. Alright, so what about children? So we're going to look at a property called child nodes. So let's say child nodes, and let's do a console.log Jeez, I can't type. Console.log, and we're going to take that item list, which is the UL, and we're going to say dot child nodes. I cannot type on this keyboard. So let's take a look at what we get here. So what we're getting is a node list, okay? So basically an array. And it's giving us all these different nodes, or all these different items here. We have 0, 1, 2, and notice that this 0 is actually a text node. Okay, so the text node is actually it just represents white space. Okay, so it represents if there's a line break or anything like that. So if we look in our HTML here, this is what it's grabbing. Now it's getting each list item, but it's also getting this text node in between, which is actually the line break. If I were to go ahead and let's just get rid of all line breaks, basically put all these LIs on one line and save, and then take a look. Oh, I guess we still have it here and here. So now if I save that, then it doesn't have any text nodes, it's just all the list items. So that is kind of a pain in the ass, so I would not suggest using child nodes. Let me just get this back to where I need it. What I would suggest using is children. Okay, so you have child nodes, you also have a property called children. So let's look at that. So if we say console.log and we say item list dot children and save, let's take a look at this, and now it's just the list items, it's just the elements. It's not going to look at the line breaks as text nodes and put that into this collection. All right, notice it's also an HTML collection, it's no longer a node list. Okay, so there are some differences. Now if we wanted to access a specific child, like let's say this one right here, which is item 2, has the index of 1. I'm sure you guys, if you guys have been following along, you probably know how we can do that. We can say item list dot children, and we can put in our brackets, and we'll select the 1 element, and then you'll see it's listing out item 2. Okay, and if we wanted to do something with that, we could take it and let's say dot background color, and we'll set that equal to yellow. Let's see, that didn't work. Oh, I forgot style. And there we go. So we can use that. All right, so we also have a property called first child. So let's say first child, and we're going to console.log the item list, and we're going to call first child. All right, now you probably think you know what this is going to give us. You probably think it's going to give us this item 1, but let's go ahead and save, and it doesn't. It gives us the text node. Okay, just like with the child nodes, this is going to include any white space, any line breaks or anything. If I were to go and get rid of that line break right there, or just that space, and save, then it'll give us the first one. Okay, so to me, first child is kind of useless, at least for what I've used it, what I do. So there's another method called firstElementChild, which is probably what you want to use. So let's say firstElementChild, and we're going to just console log the item list dot firstElementChild, and then that will give us the actual li. All right, and we can take that firstElementChild and let's say dot text content, and we'll change that to, let's say, hello1. Save, and you can see that the first one is now hello1. And then we also have last child and lastElementChild, which does the same thing. So I'm just going to copy that block. Let's comment all this out, and let's change this to last child and last child element, or lastElementChild. So let's first see what last child gives us. We'll go ahead and save that. It gives us that last text node. And let's go ahead and save this. And we just need to change this to last element child. And we'll change this text to, let's say, hello 4. All right, so now you can see that it's logging us the last li, and then it's also changing the text content to hello 4. All right, so first child, first element child, last element child. Next thing we're going to look at is siblings. Okay, so up to this point we've been looking at parents and children. Now let's look at siblings. So let's say we want to get the next sibling. Okay, that's actually a method. So we're going to console.log, and let's grab the item list. And you can test this out on any element you want. I just chose the item list. But let's say next sibling, and save. And again, it's going to give us the text node. Okay, so just like with first child, last child, next sibling, we also have nextElementSibling. So let's say nextElementSibling. We'll go ahead and change this to nextElementSibling. And why did that happen? Item list.nextElementSibling. Oh, does it not have any? Yes, see it. Okay, so it's null because it doesn't actually have a next sibling. If I were to put, let's say, a span here, let's save that, and then you can see it's the span. Okay, so I just chose something that doesn't actually have a next sibling. All right, let's see what else we're going to look at. We're also going to look at previous sibling. So we'll go ahead and console.log, and let's say item list dot previous sibling. Let's see what that gives us. Again, it's going to give us the text node, and I'm sure you already guessed that we have previous element sibling as well. Oh. Okay, so that's going to give us the H2 because before the UL, the sibling before it is the H2. And of course, if we wanted to do something with that, we could take it and let's say .style.color, and we'll set that to, let's say, green. And there we go. So you can see you can select anything you want and you can do whatever you want with it with JavaScript. You don't need jQuery. I know I sound very anti-jQuery. I just think that, like I said, the analogy that I like is using a sledgehammer to kill a mosquito. You don't need it. It'll work, but you don't need it, and it adds that extra file to your page and just slows you down that much. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of really nice jQuery plugins for things like hardcore animation, like when you scroll down a page and you want certain things to pop out at certain spots. I mean, you can do that kind of stuff in JavaScript, but there are really nice jQuery plugins that will save you a lot of time, and it's a lot less code. So I'm not saying don't use jQuery for anything. I'm just saying for simple DOM manipulation, there's really no need for it. Alright guys, so what I want to do now is I want to get into actually creating stuff, creating DOM elements from JavaScript and inserting them. Because right now, up to this point, we've just been selecting them, we've been changing the content and stuff like that, but I want to show you how we can actually create elements and insert them. Alright, so we're going to look at, we're going to look at a method called createElement. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's create a div. So we'll create a variable. I'll call it new div, not new dick, new div. I don't need a new dick, I don't think. And, and we'll say document.createElement. Should I edit that out? Nah. So createElement div. And what we'll do is add a class to that. Actually, let's console log it first. So we'll just say new div. And you can see we just have a single div. So we can take this div and we can do different things with it. Let's say we want to add a class to it. So we'll go ahead and we'll say new div dot, and we'll use class name. Okay, so class name, and we'll just set it to hello. Save, and now we're logging it again, and you can see it has a class of hello. If we wanted to add an ID to it, then we could say, actually let me put a comment here. We'll say add class, then we'll say add ID. So we'll take our new div and we're going to say dot ID equals, and we'll say hello1. Save, and now you can see it has a class of hello and an ID of hello1. Now if we wanted to create another attribute onto it, like let's say a title, let's say add attribute, we can say new div dot set attribute, and it's going to take in one parameter is going to be the actual attribute you want. Let's say we want to add a title, and then the next one will be the value. We'll just say hello div. Let's save, and now you can see it has a title on it. So what if we want to insert something in here? Because right now we just have the div tag. We don't have any content inside of it. So for that, we're going to have to create a text node. So we're going to take, actually we're going to create a new variable here, and we're going to call this new div text, and we're going to set this to document dot create text node. Okay, and then in here we can put whatever we want. Let's just say hello world. All right, so now we have this div text. What we want to do now is append it to our div. All right, so let's say add text to div. So we'll say new div, and we'll say append child, okay, because it's going to be a child of the new div, and we're going to pass in our new div text. All right, so now let's save and console log, and you'll see that now hello world is inside of that div. So we've constructed this all from JavaScript. All right, now what I want to do is I want to insert it into the DOM, because right now it's just existing inside of our JavaScript. It's not actually in the DOM. All right, so what I'm going to do is we need to figure out where we want to put it. So I'm going to say I'm going to grab the header container. If we look at the HTML, inside the header we have the class container, because I want to put it right here. All right, well, right below this div. So let's create a variable, and we'll just call it container. Of course, you could call it anything you want, and we're going to use the document dot query selector, and inside here we'll say in the header we want the container class. All right, and then I'm also going to grab the h1, the header h1. So we'll set that to document dot query selector, and let's grab the header h1. All right, and then what we'll do is let's see, we'll take our container and we're going to say dot insert before. Okay, and that's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to insert before, and it's going to take in two parameters. One is going to be what we're inserting, which is new div, and then one is going to be what we're inserting before, which is going to be the h1. All right, so let's go ahead and save that, and there it is. There's our hello world. If we go ahead and we inspect it, you'll see that it has it has the class, the ID, the title, and it has the text that we constructed in the JavaScript. All right. Whoops, what did I do? So if we wanted to change, let's say we wanted to change the font size, we could simply go in here and say new div dot style dot font size, and we'll set it to, let's say, 30 pixels. Save, and we can treat it just like any other div element. Okay, so it's now part of the DOM. I'm sorry, I said div element, I mean DOM element. Alright, so I think I'm going to stop the video here, guys, because in the next video I want to start to get into events. Right now we've just been selecting things from our JavaScript, and we've just been kind of, adding styles and changing text. But I want to add some interactivity, which is something we haven't done yet. So in the next video we're going to get into using events, both click events, keyboard events, and then I think we'll do one more video after that, and we'll turn this into an actual application where we can add items, and we'll add them to the DOM, to the list right here, and then we'll add a delete button. We'll be able to clear them out. So we'll create a little application at the end. I didn't really plan on doing that, but I think that that's a good idea. You guys can let me know what you think. All right, so thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next part.